into Rothman's corner, something locked up at the rear end. It's been the real problem of this motor car for quite some time now, that it's been unable to accept hard braking. The rear suspension hasn't been unable to take it. In fact, Johnson has gone for quite some help from sources such as even the Nissan motor team. And there he is, Dick Johnson's out of the car. He's okay, but a very disappointed Dick Johnson. And it just starts to give way there. You can see the rear wheel locking up entirely, and there's nothing Dick can do to hold it. It hits the grass, and as soon as it hits the grass, it's freewheeling, and there's nothing that Dick can do to control it down there. Into the gully. And the power that roll bar must have inside Dick's car, because it just crushed down on the cockpit. And I would say that Dick Johnson owes, if not his life, certainly his well-being at this stage, to the strength of the roll bar inside that Ford Falcon. And so much for the 1-minute penalty. Peter Brock, Peter Perfect, back in the lead again and in a winning position. One lap up on Alan Moffat now. Can afford to cruise to the finish, which is only a very few laps away. As darkness starts to descend on the circuit, rain earlier in the day has forced the Surfers International Resort 300 to start very late. And without daylight saving in Queensland, of course, we're heading towards dusk already as Peter Brock enters the final 5 or 6 laps of this 95-lap endurance race. Brock, his arm resting casually now on the sill of the car as he comes down the main straight. Doesn't mean he's taking it that easily. It means simply that the effort that Peter Brock has had to put up today in something of a brilliant drive to make this Marlborough Holden dealer team Commodore go as quickly as it has, to match pace with Dick Johnson throughout the race, has been quite immense. See Brock's arm go on the sill there again. He's resting his muscles because he must be very tired indeed. A satisfying week for Peter Brock, in fact. We're on lap 95 to go, and a satisfying week indeed for Peter Brock, because earlier this week at Exmouth in South Australia, he won a fishing contest. Peter Brock is a mad keen fisherman, an amateur fisherman. He caught a trevally, 39.8 kilograms it was. He took it back to the weighing bridge and discovered that the world record for a trevally caught on a 10-kilogram line was 37.53. So at the moment we're watching a world champion racing at Surfers Paradise International Raceway, a world fishing champion. And I think Peter Brock's probably prouder than that, than he is even of winning this event today. Brock, 3 times Australian touring car champion, 5 times winner of the James Hardy 1000, matching the all-time James Hardy 1000 record set by Bob Jane. And it's a satisfying conclusion to the long-distance endurance race season for Peter Brock, with the Australian Grand Prix at Calder Raceway in Victoria to come next week, where he and Dick Johnson were due to clash again, but it will now depend on whether Johnson's car can be readied in time. So this could well be the last clash this year of Johnson and Brock. And it's been a year that Brock hasn't enjoyed, because Johnson's had his measure all the way. Johnson's car has had a better power-to-weight ratio. Brock has been denied the cylinder heads and camshafts that he wanted to make himself competitive. He said that had he been allowed those cylinder heads and camshafts, that he would have had an extra 35 horsepower approximately, and another 11 foot-pounds of torque. His engine currently running at 330 horsepower, and on every straight, on every acceleration out of a corner, he's been behind the 8-ball, separated from Dick Johnson by mass horsepower. It's been a frustrating situation for Peter Brock. And earlier, before this race started, we asked him just what he thought of the rivalry between himself and Dick Johnson.
Dick's a very clever engineer, very good driver, and we have to keep on our toes to try and keep in the ballpark. I think it's been very good for motorsport in general. It's certainly been good for me and the team, and that we've had to really extract an extra amount of performance from our car and from ourselves And I mean, everywhere around Australia this year has been fantastic for motorsport. It's been great racing. The fans have been behaving well like football crowds. And I'm looking forward to 82. I hope I can turn the tables.
Well, a smile from Peter Block, who was probably a plastic smile at the time he gave that interview, but now he's got reason to think that it may come good for him in 1982. He'll keep trying to get those camshafts and the cylinder head homologated so that he can be more competitive with Dick Johnson. And certainly this year, we've seen probably Peter Brock at his best. Not necessarily winning, but because of the desperation that's been on him, we've seen a more intense Peter Brock. We've seen a man who has tried harder than he possibly ever could before. And we're coming up to the checkered flag now. But Peter Brock, winner of the Surfers Paradise International Resort 300 over 95 laps of the 3.22 kilometre Surfers Paradise circuit. Graham Bailey in the Toyota Celica will take the 2-litre class. That will give Toyota the Australian Endurance Championship for 1981, the first time that Toyota has won the Endurance Championship. The crowd now bursts the barriers and comes across.
A very, very, very hot Peter Brock after the 300. Plenty of cheers from the Queensland crowd. Now, there's some consternation over the actual race winner. It's unofficial at the moment because of the 1-minute penalty. But how did the car run? And because you really had an uneventful
There's no 1-minute penalty for number one because we had a discussion on that. The starter motor was winding over. If there was, I'm quite confident we were more than a minute ahead of where we became third.
That was Alan Moffat, and the Moffat crew say that you were 57 seconds ahead.
Well, if that's the case, no one on the circuit other than them knew that.
Well, anyway, there's consternation about the race. How do you fellas feel about this penalty? Because it's a ruling that John
I've never heard of it until you mention it right now, and I'll withhold any comment until someone who has got some official status comes along and tells me that it actually is.
I think turning away from that issue for just a moment, Peter, how did you feel about the pressure from Dick Johnson during the race?
Oh, look, that was a fantastic race, so I must really put my hat up to him. We had a lot of problems with yellow flags. I ended up getting a yellow flag, a sign from my pit saying, don't go fast under yellow flags. I lost about 6 seconds to Dick under yellow flags. So I thought, well, someone's going fast under them because he's catching me. Now, I had a problem with the back tyre, and once the track dried out, the puncture stopped leaking because the rubber tends to weld itself together again, and away I went.
All right, good. Adoration from the fans, Alan. Yes. A race win is a race win. How do you feel about taking it on a technicality like this?
Well, it's never the way to win a race, and I think it's a pity that it's the Dick upside down in the ditch with a few laps to go. It was very tiring. The weather was hard on all the drivers. I'm exhausted, and I think it just goes to show our little Mazda, if she finishes, she's got the potential to win. And it's never nice to see the other guys have bad luck, but we've had our own share in the past.
Are you aware of the 1-minute penalty that was given to the Marlboro Holden dealer team?
I was told that. I think it's a silly rule, and you know, it's one of those things we have these dark age rules, but I guess that's the way it goes.
Well, we've heard comments from two of Australia's leading drivers, Peter Brock and Alan Moffat, on that ruling. It's controversial. It's certainly going to be something talked about in the future. But Alan Moffat is the race winner. Bob Vincent at Surfers International Raceway for ABC Sport.